Hello, this is Tate with Blackground Doors, blackgrounddoors.net. Today we want to talk about our nutrients that we use here at our organic garden so you can get tomato plants like this. This is a tomato plant that we grew here in our indoor garden / outdoor garden. This is a 15-inch tomato plant. This is an heirloom variety called pineapple. And as you can see, 15 inches of growth. This was a seed a month and 3 days ago. So this guy is just over a month and we've already got 15 inches of growth. And we're going to talk about how we can make that happen even being organic. You know, you'll have a lot of people tell you, well, you have to give up organic, with growth-wise, and you get taste out of it. We're going to tell you how to do both. We want you to have big, powerful, great tasting plants, and your vegetables will be great tasting, but still be able to grow twice as fast as everybody else and still get amazingly looking plants with no disease and sturdy as all get out. I mean, this plant is being able to be turned all the way over to the side and not drooping one little bit. So real big. The first thing we want to talk about is my 4 big bangs to say, what am I going to get out of my organic garden? How do I make my organic garden do well? And I have 4 points to start out with. First, light. I think this is probably my #1 on the actual things that everybody misses out on. The simplest, easiest thing to screw up. To get a plant to really grow fast right off the bat, we want to start before it's cold outside. After it's cold, so after the last frost, about 2 weeks after that is when we want to start. Around here, we usually start about April 20th is when we want to start putting them in the ground. We want to put them in on the dark of the moon, so when the moon is new. What that allows it to do is, as the moon is raising, it's actually pulling water up from the ground to our above ground plants. So plants that are actually going to produce fruit above the ground. Now, if we're going to do something like potatoes, we want to plant those in the full moon. Because as the moon, digresses all the way back down, we're going to be sitting there and we're going to be taking that water and it's going to be sucked down into the ground. More for those root type plants, like tomatoes and carrots. So just keep in mind, around that time, somewhere around, and that's in California, find out when your last frost is where you're at. So really important, but for our plants, we plant them in the dark of the moon, so in that new moon phase. We also plant them after the last frost. When they're in my grow room inside, they get 18 hours of light and then dark during the night. The other thing, when they go outside, I'm finding an area that gets the most sun out of my yard every single day. We want direct sunlight for tomatoes. So I want a plant that is going to be able to get somewhere in the area of 6 to 8 hours plus a day. More is better in this particular area. The second thing is CO2. You'll have a lot of people talk about talking to their plants. Now, if you've seen one of our other videos on the CO2 generator, that really does work. It does an amazing job. Every week I usually change out my yeast and sugar mixture to really help these plants grow. And you'll see, after I take off my domes and hit them with the fans and the CO2 at the same time, these plants just jump up in size. So again, CO2, either something where you've got a fan blowing in the room. If you can, build a CO2 generator. If you've really got a big room, there is commercial setups for pumping CO2 into your room. I think the little CO2 setup we have is great for your seedlings if you're only going to grow seedlings inside and then move them outside. So have that fan. That fan can run 24 hours a day, which is great. And the CO2 doesn't have to run 24 hours a day. It's only really working when the lights are on. So I have mine kick on. As soon as the sun comes up, I have my lights and my fans and my CO2 kick on all at the same time. So really, that's really important. My third thing here is going to be micronutrients. This, I think, is one of the things that everybody leaves out that's an organic gardener. And if you're going to do true organics, you really do need to concentrate on this. This is a organic. You're going to want to have micronutrients. Micronutrients being beneficial fungi and bacteria. So one thing we really use is micro madness, and we'll get into what that is in just in a second, and a mycorrhizae of some sort, which is really, really important. We'll get into what those are in a second. But you're having it where that's really, 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 and I cannot stress how important it is for micronutrients to be in your soil. Which brings us to our last thing, which I think most people have screwed up in the last 20 years, because we've become a society that lives on, tap water. Water that is being pumped into your house. We've got away from wells and ponds and irrigation water. Now what that has brought with it is chlorine into our water, which I don't feel is a huge problem for the average person. Some people will say it's the worst thing ever had happened. But the real problem we have is that it does kill micronutrients. So when you water your plants, and you've spent all this money on organic nutrients, and you water your plants with water that has bleach or chlorine in it, you're killing what is helping your plants do well. So really, going to a water that you've either pumped out of your well, you've brought in, or, I don't recommend bottled water. I recommend water that you've either done from rainwater or collection, or tap water that you've ran aerators in to bleach out the water. So really, what we use here is we use a 50-gallon water barrel. We get rainwater during the wintertime, and then during the summertime, we're using tap water. We're putting aerators in there to super oxygenate the water, and then we're actually taking that water, and as we run it for 24 hours in that cycle, that's allowing all of the chlorine to evaporate out. So we want to have no chlorine, and we want to oxygenate that water. We want to pump air into our water. So running aerators is a great idea. And you can get most of these products that you're going to see here today. We have 3 great stores in our area. We have the Green Garden Store, Grow Biz, and Tell Two Friends Hydro up in Auburn. So great places to deal with. You have lots of experienced people that are really going to help you out in these areas. Now the first thing I want to talk about is stuff we're going to put in our soil as soon as we transplant. And I even put most of these products in my soil all the way through my grow. So as I transplant, and when I'm actually mixing it into the soil when I'm doing my actual seedlings, and even into my my seedlings. First thing here is a great balanced fertilizer for growth. Now this is something that's going to last about 8 weeks, so we want to it's a slow release fertilizer. I like to see something that has a high nitrogen count, which is your first number here. Your phosphorus is great for actual vegetable growth, potassium on the end for your root growth. So something in those lines where you're looking at a big first number to really help those plants shoot up. Have something with definite good on your potassium and phosphorus, just because you're going to be able to have good production of roots and vegetable flower growth. So big on that. Next thing is mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae is actually what's going to help those roots explode in there. Now if you'll see if you've ever got any of my plants, when you open them up, you're going to look inside the bottom of the plant, and the plant is going to be just explosive with roots. You're going to see those white roots that are really going to be there. That comes from mycorrhizae and our beneficial microorganisms. So these are things that you cannot really do too much of, I don't feel. Really putting, 2 or 3 ounces on your plants at a time is something great. And this is something, the mycorrhizae here, this is something you can get for about 15 bucks at most of your places. I really like the Earth Juice version. It's a little cheaper than everybody else's. There's a lot of different versions out there that some of them are really expensive, some are really cheap. This is a granulated version, so it comes out in a powdery type substance. Really small, really easy. You wouldn't want to put this in your sprayer though, so we'll get into some of your micronutrients that are going to work better for sprayer type applications. Now, I use a product called Age-Old Organics. I've been using this for several years now. I really do like it. This is not an OMRI listed organic, but an organic product nonetheless. I really like their product because, one, if you look at the bottle here, you're going to see a huge nitrogen rate of about 12. Now 12 is huge when it comes to that type of an application. So for organics, a 12.66 is massive in organic. Usually you'll see things below 1 on this your NPK chart. The next thing we're going to do is a organic bloom formula from Age Old. Now, any of these, if you go to your local area and they don't sell Age Old, you know, like a lot of the places around here don't, but you can find things like iguana juice from Advanced Nutrients, an awesome, awesome product, quite a little bit more expensive than this. You can use the botanicare products, which are amazing, but I've used this. I've just stuck with it for what it is. It's a great product for the price. I like it a lot. Now we're going to go ahead and skip to our next video, so because we don't want to hold you on here too long, so we're going to skip to our next video. So please click over to either our web channel or just hit the next video in line, which will be our second video on this particular product.